Hello, I'm Lindsay Bugby from The Postman's Knock, and today we are going to make a simple illuminated letter. This illuminated letter project is pretty simple because it really just employs a tracing technique. So I have this free printable available on the TPK blog. There are plenty of other letters, and they are all vintage ornamental letters that you just trace over, and then you make your illuminated letter from there. They all come, all of the letters, from this Decorated Alphabets and Initials book by Alexander Nesbitt. So this is a super cool book. It was published in 1959, and essentially it is just a whole bunch of copyright-free alphabets from across the centuries. So that is where I got all of these letters. I just scanned them and enlarged them, and that's the reason they look a little bit pixelated, which is fine for printing purposes. But thank you, Alexander Nesbitt, who is no longer with us, for putting that book together, because that is making all of our lives easier when it comes to making these illuminated letters. You'll need a few key supplies in order to make this illuminated letter project. So first you'll need a piece of 5" by 7" paper, preferably watercolor or handmade paper that can handle watercolors. I like to use Indian Cotton Paper Company paper because it has this really cool deckled edge that I feel contrasts really nicely with the gold. It's kind of like you've got this very proper sparkling gold, but then the edge of the paper has this artisanal feel to it that is just super nice. So if you can find some, that's great. Second, you will need a printout from the TPK website. So the TPK website has these letters available as a free printable. So download the entire PDF and then print off the letter or the letters that you plan to make. Do note that this particular alphabet does not have all of the letters in it. If you want to make an illuminated letter that is not in this alphabet, check out the next level illuminated letter tutorial, which I will link to below this video. Okay, after that, you need either watercolors or purple or blue or green ink, whatever you want to use to infuse color into the project. You also need Finetec Arabic Gold watercolor. You can see that mine is used a lot, very well loved, but it's still going to work beautifully for this project. You'll need water for your watercolors. And if you have something like a blunt art syringe to add moisture into the watercolors, that's great, though not super necessary. You can use a spoon if you want. Use a pencil because you'll need it to trace your draft, and a nice eraser to get rid of your pencil draft lines. And then you will need Sumi Ink, a straight pen fitted with a Nico G nib, and then a size 0 or a size 1 paintbrush. Optionally, you can use a light box, but as long as you have a nice bright window around, you can use that too. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is trace our letter onto this 5 by 7 piece of paper. So I am making a J today. You can see here I'm putting it on the light box, and I'm making this draft because I can see the J shining up through the light box. Obviously this video is sped up so you don't have to watch it in real time. It typically takes me about 7 to 10 minutes to do this step. As I mentioned, if you do not have a light box, you can get the same effect by holding your papers up to a nice bright window. So just hold them up to that window. The letter will shine right through the watercolor paper, and then you can use your pencil in order to draw the letter. Okay, that looks good. Let's get started. Okay, once you've got your pencil draft, which I do right here, you will want to prep the color that you're going to use for this project. So in the original project on the TPK blog, the original tutorial, I used purple ink, but today I am actually going to use purple watercolor because I'll bet watercolor will work just as well for this project, and I couldn't find my purple ink. So we're using Purple Lake from the Winsor & Newton Cotman palette, and I've just moistened that with my blunt art syringe. So at this point, we'll give the paint just a couple of seconds to moisten up. And then what we're going to do is fill in color on the letter on the outside and then also any inside areas. And you're going to use your size 0 or a size 1 brush to do that. I will speed up the video here so you can watch what I'm doing, but you don't have to sit here for a long time and watch me do it in real time. Once your watercolor has a couple of minutes to dry, you can start adding gold to your illuminated letter, which is why we call it an illuminated letter in the first place. So this is a pretty exciting step. You will want to moisten this gold watercolor at least 1 minute before you start using it. So with regular watercolors, you can typically give those just a couple of seconds for water to soak in. For this gold watercolor, it really needs a good minute or two to really reach that viscosity that we want. So I already added some water in there, probably about 0.5 milliliters. And that was probably 2 or 3 minutes ago. And I am just mixing this up. You want it to have the consistency of cream, like cream that you would pour into a mixer to make whipped cream out of. And it should look nice and opaque. And again, we're using a size 0 or 1 paintbrush here. Anything bigger than that, and you can't really get those small details. So any area of the letter you see that is not a line, so that's open, you know, it's a circle, it's a diamond, whatever, you fill that in with gold. And I think that that is pretty self-explanatory. So again, I'm going to speed up the video so you can just watch this come together. Once you've finished painting your letter with the gold watercolor, you'll want to add Sumi Ink. So I want to take just a second to talk about why we're doing things in this order, because if you've ever made any other TPK projects, I typically have you begin with a waterproof ink. So that's usually Ziller ink, and you draw that on your page and then watercolor over it. The reason that we are ending with the ink rather than starting with it is because this gold watercolor tends to be a bit opaque when it goes over the black ink lines. So you end up with this piece that doesn't look that clean, because if there's black ink under the gold tends to obscure your view of the black ink. So in this particular project, when we add ink at the very end, that ink is extremely strong and impactful and clean looking. For the same reason, I would like to ask you to try to refrain from using any sort of marker or pen to do this step, any pen that's not a dip pen, because what I've seen on Instagram is when people attempt to create these illuminated letters and then they finish up by using a regular gel pen, it just doesn't look as clean and professional. So if you've already put in the time, you might as well just end with the dip pen. It doesn't require any specific technique like we use with calligraphy. You are literally just dipping your pen in ink and then using that ink to trace over the lines here. So I recommend Sumi Ink in particular because it is so velvety and black. It just has a wonderful texture. And you'll just want to slowly walk through this. Start wherever you think you can keep your hand out of things, and then just draw around the edges here. If you are new to using a dip pen, you just dip the pen in ink up to the hole in the middle of the nib, and then use the pen like a normal pen. That's all you do with it, nothing special. If you're creating calligraphy with this pen, you do special things with pressure, but in this project, we are simply using the pen to put ink on the page. And I would like to point out that when you get to certain areas here, like if you end up putting your pen directly on the gold instead of going around the gold, you might notice that the ink runs just slightly. Don't worry about it if that's the case. It's not super noticeable, and you can often just smooth out those edges by going back and forth. Okay. I think that is all there is to say about this step beyond keep your hand out of the way. You do not want your hand to go over black ink and then ruin the piece by, getting that black ink on another part. So just be mindful of turning this letter in order to reach certain spots. But I think that that's my only word of caution. I'm going to go ahead and keep working on this, and I'll speed up the video so you can watch it come together quickly. Okay, at this stage, you just want to go through and erase any pencil draft lines that remain. There shouldn't be many of them, and there are not on my letter here. Just to give this a nice, really, really clean look. Okay. And now this letter is done. I hope that you enjoyed this illuminated letter project. It is easily one of my very favorite tutorials on the TPK blog because it is so accessible. All you have to do is trace, paint, and then essentially trace again with your pen. And once you're finished, you're rewarded with this letter that really dances in the sunlight. Like, isn't this metallic watercolor so cool? Of course, feel free to switch up the color. I just chose purple today on a lark, but I have seen these letters looking gorgeous in green and blue as well, so feel free to experiment there. Also experiment with the size of the letters. So this printable is designed for a 5x7 piece of paper, but you could easily instruct your printer to print this image at, let's say, 50%. And then you can work on a piece of watercolor paper that's half that size and maybe make a gift tag out of it. So the possibilities are endless as far as color and size. So just keep that in mind when you are gearing up to create this project. Again, I really hope that you liked it. I enjoyed having the chance to make it. So thanks a ton for watching this video. Be sure to visit the TPK website in order to print off this freebie. And you can visit the TPK supplies shop to find things like the Arabic Gold Watercolor and the Sumi Ink. Okay, thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next TPK tutorial video.